Origin of life. Life on Earth began about 3.5 billion years ago. At that point in the development of the Earth, the atmosphere was very different from what it is today. As opposed to the current atmosphere, which is mostly nitrogen and oxygen, the early Earth atmosphere contained mostly hydrogen, water, ammonia, and methane. In experiments, scientists have showed that the electrical discharges of lightning, radioactivity, and ultraviolet light cause the elements in the early Earth atmosphere to form the basic molecules of biological chemistry, such as nucleotides and ATP. It seems likely, then, that the Earth was covered in a hot, thin soup of water and organic materials. Over time, the molecules became more complex and began to collaborate to run metabolic processes. Eventually, the first cells came into being. These cells were heterotrophs, which could not produce their own food and instead fed on the organic material from the primordial soup, which allowed for the evolution of photosynthetic autotrophs, which could use light and CO2 to produce their own food. The autotrophs released oxygen into the atmosphere. For most of the original anaerobic heterotrophs, oxygen proved poisonous. The few heterotrophs that survived the change in environment generally evolved the capacity to carry out aerobic respiration. Over the subsequent billions of years, the aerobic autotrophs and heterotrophs became the dominant life forms on the planet and evolved into all of the diversity of life now visible on Earth. The appearance of the first cells marked the origin of life on Earth. However, before cells could form, the organic molecules must have united with one another to form more complex molecules called polymers. In 1958, S. L. Miller's experiment in 1953, he created electric discharges in a flask containing methane, hydrogen, ammonia, and water vapor at 8,000 degrees Celsius. He observed formation of amino acids. The proteinases were apparently able to act as enzymes and catalyze organic reactions. More recent evidence indicates that RNA molecules have the ability to direct the synthesis of new RNA molecules as well as DNA molecules. Because DNA provides the genetic code for protein synthesis, it is conceivable that DNA may have formed in the primitive Earth environment as a consequence of RNA activity. Then, DNA activity could have led to protein synthesis. For a cell to come into being, some sort of enclosing membrane is required to hold together the organic materials of the cytoplasm. A generation ago, scientists believed that membranous droplets formed spontaneously. These membranous droplets, called protocells, were presumed to be the first cells. Modern scientists believe, however, that protocells do not carry any genetic information and lack the internal organization of cells. Thus, the protocell perspective is not widely accepted. Several groups of scientists are currently investigating the synthesis of polypeptides and short nucleic acids on the surface of clay. The origin of the first cells remains a mystery.